Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the Build Up Road to Cheltenham here on Ballsdotie, our weekly look ahead to the biggest races in the Cheltenham Festival, all in association with Ladbrokes. Why are we doing this? Well, look, let's face it, some of us, me, don't watch as much racing as we should, but we want to be ready to go. We want to know what the hell is going on come the 16th of March, come Tuesday and the Supreme Novices Hurdle. We want to know exactly what's happening, and by God, we will. And we'll do it all in the company of our very own shaman of Cheltenham, Aonghus Ó Maicín. Shaman, I was going to say. Aonghus, how are you?
Not
You're
too
very
bad.
welcome.
Getting excited now. 3 weeks. Can't
Three
wait.
weeks to go. 3 weeks to go. If people want to look back, they can listen to episode 1. We did Ask Me Anything There Is. Anything there is about the Arkle or the Queen Mother Champion Chase, and I'll be able to answer it for you after the lesson that Aonghus gave us last week on the show. If you want to be as knowledgeable as me, just go back and listen to episode 1. But episode 2, we're going to do the Champion Hurdle, the big race on the Tuesday. We're going to do the Ryanair Chase, one of the great conundrums of the Cheltenham Festival, as always, Aonghus. But it's been actually a very interesting day or two for Cheltenham. As I said, we're 3 weeks away, and news very recently that amateur jockeys won't be able to go, which has huge implications.
Huge implications. Lots of amateur races at Cheltenham, which are for amateurs only. No, we assume they're not going to be going ahead. A lot of amateur jockeys as well, obviously, are in the big races. Patrick Mullins is just one that would obviously have a lot of big rides. Who's going to take his rides now? And he's been talking about going professional. That would be massive. There's 3 weeks away, only 3 weeks, but between now and then, you can imagine there's going to be a huge amount of storylines. This isn't the end of this story. I think I was reading up on comments last night. I think a lot of the amateur jockeys have kind of accepted their fate. But I think, Patrick Mullins has left it open, has left the opportunity or the possibility of going professional open. And that'd be very interesting. And you'd love to see him at the festival too, because he's a great talent. And I'm sure Willie could certainly do with him in his arsenal for the big races.
Yeah, this is it. So, like we talked about Willie Mullins and his jockey situation last week, bringing Brian Cooper back into things. But if he lost his nephew David, who retired, Patrick would be on a lot of his horses. Obviously, he's still got Paul Townend, but like there's no Ruby to be calling on anymore either. Suddenly, his jockey stable just looks a lot lighter than it did just a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and that's why he'll. No, I'm sure he might have a say in Patrick's decision as well, because especially for the big races, I think in the Ryanair as well, even the great Willie Mullins might be struggling to find out which is his best chance. And if he has 3 or 4 of them, like he'll want 4 dependable jockeys and 4 jockeys that have proven it. And Patrick certainly has. Patrick has ridden in Gold Cups. He's ridden in all the big races, the Champion Hurdles. You want someone dependable. He's dependable. It'd be quite the development, but in a way, I probably wouldn't be awfully surprised if I see them going professional, and I wouldn't be awfully surprised to see Willie pushing his son in that direction either.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, look, there's loads to talk about. These names will come up again over the course of the chat. Just again to remind everybody, we are doing this as a sort of a Aonghus is watching things every week. There's a lot of experts out there who'll have their opinions on everything there is to know. For the likes of me, I love horse racing. I particularly love Cheltenham. I just want to know what's happening to make I want to have as much information to hand. I want to know all the storylines going in. So when it comes to the races in between the 16th and the 19th of March, I want to know exactly what's happening so that I can make some decisions based on it. But there's no bigger race than the Champion Hurdle. We talked about the Arkle last week. I'm sure we'll do the Supreme Novices, the brilliant 1-2-3 start to the festival. Well, 1-2-4, really, I suppose. They do give us that let up on the Tuesday. But that the big race, the Champion Hurdle, always one of everybody's favourites. Again, something that has a lot of Irish success over the years. But you just look straight away there and you see Epatante, second favourite, last year's champion. And straight away you're thinking, who's this Honeysuckle character? Because you wouldn't normally see the last year's champion not favoured the year after.
No, but Honeysuckle has been for a while coming talent. She's unbeaten. She's a mare, like Epatante. She won the mare's hurdle at last year's festival. after she'd won the Irish Champion Hurdle before that, and she won it impressively. When you're coming to a champion hurdle like this, there's so much talent, especially the top three in the market, Honeysuckle, epatante, and Goshen. You're not really making a case for either horse. You have to make the case against each horse. And Honeysuckle, there's no case to be made against her. She's just flawless. Everything she's done, she's won every way. She's won romping home in big races. She's won in tussles and battles up the top, coming to the line. She's won on all sorts of ground. Her jumping, there was question marks over it in the past, small question marks. Those issues aren't there anymore on her last performance. It's just impossible to make a case against her. I have been scratching my head saying surely there's something. Oh, Cheltenham form. She doesn't have Cheltenham form. Well, no, she does. She won last year's Mayor's Hurdle, as I said. And often with mares, the public, there's always an outcry for the best mares to be entered into the champion hurdle. That's what the public want. They want the best horses taking each other on in the best races. And when a mare comes along and wins a big race, like Honeysuckle did, Irish Champion Hurdle, there's a temptation there for connections, trainers, to run in the mares at Cheltenham, because it's a grade one. It's still a grade one. It's a prestigious race. There's money. It's an easier grade one. There's still money there to be earned. More competition in the champion hurdle. It makes sense. It doesn't make sense.
And Quevega isn't there to guarantee the win every year now anymore either. So.
Yeah. So usually there's an outcry every year. Apples Jade is a case in point where everybody said Apples Jade, she has to run the champion hurdle. Michael O'Leary was like, Mayor's Hurdle there. She's definitely going to win that. Why wouldn't I go to the Mayor's Hurdle? But obviously that may have come up again this year with Honeysuckle. Say, we should go to the Mayor's Hurdle or the Champion Hurdle. But there was never any debate because she's just so impressive. Henry de Bromhead or Kenneth Alexander, or her owner, they've been left with no choice but to bring her straight to the Champion Hurdle. You just couldn't put her into the Mayor's Hurdle. She's just, every aspect, every facet of her game, she's just, I've been using this phrase a lot. This is a sensational talent, but this really is a superstar in the making. Of all the horses at this year's festival, I'd probably be, using that line a lot. Oh, this is a superstar, a possible superstar, but this is the genuine superstar possibility. It's across the whole festival. She's just that good.
Wow, that's a big endorsement. Wow. I have to say, I don't know how much this will come into whether she wins or not. It could. I don't know anything. But she's got a great name. I can see, but honestly though, in terms of like being a superstar, isn't Honeysuckle like one of the perfect names for everybody to get excited about? Again, I'm still thinking of Cheltenham as something that's going to have 50,000 people throwing their programs up in the air. It's not going to be that way this year, unfortunately, but we will still have our moments watching on TV. Maybe we're doing that virtually, but I do think Honeysuckle is one of it jumps off the page straight away as a great name for one of those horses that the whole world is on. That we all want her to win.
You can see in years to come, reading back on the great Honeysuckle being spoken about in the same breath as Dawn Run. And they're like, but I'm getting carried away with myself.
That's a jump. Yeah. Well, tell us about epatante then, because there is other, I know you want to talk about Goshen, and that's an interesting one, and there's other interesting horses throughout the race. But tell us about epatante, because again, we talked a little bit about Politologue last week, maybe not getting the respect of a champion in the champion chase, third favourite and probably being a bit dismissed despite winning it last year. But epatante is second favourite, still not a huge price by any means, 11-4 there on Ladbrokes, so not one to dismiss completely.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. And again, I'm going back to the case you have to make against every horse rather than for every horse in this race, particularly because there's so much talent. And again, epatante seems exceptional. One small blip, she lost at Kempton, lost to Silver Streak, who also appears in this field. I think you can excuse that run at Christmas at Kempton. Otherwise, last year's winner coming back again. like Honeysuckle, she's also mare, so she has an advantage of £7. Like Goshen has to give £7 to her because she's a mare. So I think that will come to her advantage. Obviously, she's without Barry Gershie aboard this year. Barry Gershie retired. And everybody knows Barry Gershie is a great jockey. He's spoken in the same breath as all the greats. And, Ruby was great around Cheltenham. And, Davy is still there and was great around Cheltenham. And you have your Paul Carberrys. They're all fantastic around Cheltenham. All the great ones are. But I don't think any of them are quite as good as Barry Gershie. Barry Gershie was just a different animal around the track. And he was obviously on epatante last year and not this year. So I think it'd be Aidan Coleman taking that. Highly talented jockey as well. But I wonder, would that make any difference at all?
Yeah.
Probably not. But you have to, as I said, in these highly competitive fields, you have to really nitpick to try and figure out where the advantages are going to appear. And maybe that will have a length or two advantage. I don't know. I'm really kind of going down a rabbit hole here, but it's worth noting. But she is fantastic, deserving of favoritism, being last year's champion, only for Honeysuckle to come along and be so bloody exceptional with everything she's done, and being a Cheltenham winner as well. It's fair enough, but I think she's definitely, unlike Political Rogue, I think she definitely has the respect of everybody.
Of a champion.
Yeah, I think she does.
That's fair. Yeah. So look, we've got two. You see there, like there is a third horse that's under 5-1 in Goshen 92, and this is interesting as well because you're talking about my interest anyway. A lot of the time is like who's the people's champion, and I think there is definitely an element of the two mares going up against each other that's going to be a great storyline. But Goshen has his own little interesting story, his own sob story from Cheltenham last year, and is in some form as well. Like only won at the weekend.
Yeah, let's go back to last year's champion, last year's
Triumph.
First. Yeah, the Triumph. Goshen was the everybody's banker of the week last year. He was just exceptional. He was a bit of a one-trick pony, but when you consider a one-trick pony in soccer, that striker's a one-trick pony. He can score goals. It's a very good trick. It was kind of the same with Goshen. The one-trick pony. He ran a race one day, flew out ahead, left everybody else for dead. But it's a very good trick. And went to the festival last year, did the same trick, way out ahead. I say he was about going to win 20, 30 lengths, which is phenomenal. Come to the final fence, got over the final fence, hind legs clipped his front legs, and Jamie Moore went tumbling and Goshen went somersaulting, literally. And it was devastating. It was because for Jamie Moore as well, he's not a guy that wins a lot of these big races, and same with Gary Moore, the trainer. So he came back this year. Now the form doesn't scream, it's not. It doesn't look great. And when you look at the race card, you see 1-1-1, or then you see 3-4, depending on how they got on in the race. Well, obviously the 1-1-1s they've dropped, and that would scream that he's lost his whatever he had. But you need to kind of investigate a little bit more, because he's been campaigned very unusually. He went to the flat, and he was campaigned there, and then he went back to Cheltenham and came 10th out of 10. But I think there was excuses there. I think he had like a defibrillating heart afterwards or something, so you can excuse him. But he's been campaigned like a horse at a small time trainer that's mediocre at best. Just looking for somewhere you can run them, because there's not an awful lot of space, or give us a handicap, give us something where you can run them. But like,
not a Cheltenham winner.
You don't usually do that with possible championship horses. And I kind of regret not having discussed this race last week, because he was at 16-17-1, and I always fancied him. I never understood why he was that high, because he had excuses for all his bad runs on the flat. Obviously, well, it's a flat; it's a different sport, and for the run, then he had back at Cheltenham over hurdles. Well, there's excuses there, And then obviously last year, Cheltenham money for he fell at that last hurdle. He would have run to him. So, I think he's deserving of being prominent in the market. He proved that at Warwick about 3:30 last Saturday, where he turned this race upside down into one of the most anticipated ones of the week. Again, let's go back. Can we make a case against him? And that's probably where the difference is between Goshen and the two mares. He has to give the two mares £7. Also, Jamie Moore's on board. Jamie Moore's a great jockey. There's no arguing with that. I wonder, will the experience compared when you compare him to like Rachel Blackmore would be on Honeysuckle, Epatante probably be ridden by Aidan Coleman. Will the experience count against him? I'm also thinking, looking at his run at Warwick, I noticed with Jimmy Moore, there would have been an awful lot of pressure on him. And I noticed after we went over the second last, between there and the line, he was miles ahead. I think he looked over his shoulder 4 times. And I mean, it wasn't just a quick glance. It was a big swing of the head around to see where his competitors were, or his rivals were. And now, that jockeys do that all the time. And maybe I'm looking into it, body language, too much. I'm just looking to find something I can pick on. And I mean, it kind of, if I was to go reading his body language, it screamed of a sense of nervousness with all the pressure after everything that happened at Cheltenham last year. Like, if it didn't work out at Warwick, would he go to the champion hurdle? Would he just, was that the end of Goshen? Has he gotten his chance? And I'm thinking if Jamie Moore and Goshen are in contention coming up to the second penultimate fence and the final fence, and he's coming from the penultimate up to the final fence, he's thinking all of a sudden about what happened last year. Is that going to go into his mind? Is there going to be a little bit of nervous energy? And horses have a sixth sense. They can sense that. Are these little things, and this has been really unfair. But again, and I'm repeating myself, in a race of such quality, you have to try and nitpick. And I'm just thinking, hopefully, it doesn't have an impact. But I think the empty stands will really benefit both of them. You know what I mean? Especially after what happened last year.
Okay, yeah. Well, look, we're looking for storylines in this, so we know what to expect from Honeysuckle. We think we know what to expect from Epatante, and I suppose everybody watching, if you're on Goshen and he's coming up to the final hurdle, don't be counting your chickens or cashing your dock or anything like that.
Remember Any Power?
I do. Well, remember it. Silver Streak, then you mentioned beat Epatante in Kempton over Christmas, so obviously another one with a chance, I suppose, as well. Although maybe not in the class of the front 3, but to have 3 horses up the top of the betting like that on their day any of them could win, and as you mentioned, like Goshen has all the talent in the world and could be the long shot here. What else is there to look out for in the champion hurdle, or are you just sticking with those 3?
No, obviously Silver Streak is there. Beat Epatante, deserving of respect. Bouverdaire, remember him? Him? He's a double champion. He's here now. I mean, he is getting old now, and horses his age don't really win champion hurdles, but still, he deserves a spot there. If it was Crow Park, they'd be walking him out at half time to wave to the crowds. And then go back out for the throw-in. But, he deserves to line up, and it'll be interesting to see, but I can't see him hitting the frame. Then you have Sharjah, probably the primary Willie Mullins candidate. Great horse as well, but just doesn't seem to really turn up this time of the year. Seems to prefer the conditions earlier in the season, or whatever way he's trained. He seems to be a better horse earlier in the year. Or maybe he just gets to grips with a race and being back at the race course quicker than other horses. I don't know. But one really interesting one is a horse nobody, even the seasoned fans, won't have heard of, is James de Burley. He's another Willie Mullins runner. He's never even ridden for Willie Mullins or raced for Willie Mullins. He's been in France for racing in France for a few years, and Willie decided to purchase him. Very little known about him. And Willie needs to run him somewhere, so he decided, listen, we'll throw him into champion hurdle for, quote, something to do. So, it's
Are
going
you
to be
think?
very
Is
interesting.
there? As speaking of sixth sense, is your sixth sense? Is the ears pricking up and thinking, "What's Mullins up to here? Is this could be a this could be
Yeah,
the most low key champion hurdle winner of all time, just popping in.
yeah,
Turns out it's the best horse since Istabrack.
yeah. You know, it, you can't put. Willie can always be up to a little bit of devilment, and I'm confident that I might be able to catch him out once and get in there ahead of him and say, I saw this coming. But no, Willie, that's what makes him stand out from the crowd. Like, he's finding horses and picking out horses now that he plans to be running or starting to bring to the racecourse in 2 years' time. That's like his connections in France, or the lads he has over in France, are just phenomenal. The way he can, nobody else can pick talent out of that country like Willie does. Hence why he has so many French names in the stable. They're all from France, and it's just, he's incredible. And this one, I think he has said the plan is chasing down the road.
Okay.
It's just that, let's put him somewhere, get him into the champion hurdle. Never know what could happen. And Willie Mullins winning a champion hurdle with a horse that was relatively unheard of, and racing for Willie for the first time and winning it.
Only Willie.
It wouldn't knock me off my chair.
What's the name of that horse?
James de Burley.
James de Burley. Okay, cool. Sounds like one of the jockeys that would be racing in the festival, I think. But okay, we'll keep an eye out for that one. That is an interesting little tidbit, Aonghus, to wrap up our champion hurdle thing. If you're going for a winner, though, you talked with most love about Honeysuckle, but I think you're really scared of Goshen. But again, if I was to guess, I would say you'd fancy Honeysuckle here.
I mean, I think it's craziness not to go with Honeysuckle. She just has everything. If you were to ask me, well, why aren't you going for Honeysuckle? I couldn't give you any logical answer. She just seems to have everything. And no, I wouldn't like to be a trainer or jockey coming up against the Henry de Bromhead horse. I'd be probably thrown in the towel. She just seems, I just don't see where she's going to be caught out. Anything can happen around Cheltenham, but she seems so assured in everything she's done. 6 grade ones, and I think this is only the start of her journey.
Yeah, and let's face it, a champion hurdle won by Henry de Bromhead would be great, won by Honeysuckle would be great, but I think we'll lose our collective minds at Rachel Blackmore winning the big race. I think that could be fantastic, and a really, really good storyline on day one of Cheltenham if it was to happen. Day 3 of Cheltenham is where we'll get the Ryanair Chase. Before we get to that, though, Aonghus, as you know, lapsed fan, as we talked about before, there's nothing I couldn't tell you about the champion hurdle, the champion chase, or the Arkle at this stage. And in a few minutes, the Ryanair Chase will be in there as well. But unfortunately, everything else leaves me a little bit confused at this stage. But again, I'm trying to impress everybody. I'm trying to impress the listeners. I'm trying to impress my friends. I'm trying to impress other horse racing people. I need my Bluffer's guide. I need something that I can say to them that will make them think I know what I'm talking about.
Well, for the Bluffer's guide this week, I'm going to go to the champion bumper, because we're only touching on it briefly, because I do not want to talk about the champion bumper. It's a minefield. They're all babies yet. They've yet to mature. It's like going into a national school at lunchtime, just as the junior infants are coming out the door into the schoolyard. Which one of them is going to reach the hula hoop at the far end of the yard first? It could be any of them. Anyway, like 1 or 2 of them have shown that they're a bit mad for a road. You could go out onto the yard and get distracted by an ice cream van, or I don't know, a dead frog in a gutter or something. You don't know. These, they're babies. Anything could happen. You can't depend on them. But there is one horse in here that's attracted a lot of attention. Willie Mullins again, Kiel Surprise, or however you pronounce that. Kilcrut. So before I discuss briefly how he ran at Leopardstown, just for the lapsed fans such as yourself, let me explain my uneducated, or my very limited understanding of jockeymanship. Jockeys don't actually, contrary to popular belief, don't have an accelerator as such. They have a whip. It's more just a bit of encouragement, saying to let the horse know, we're coming to the line, we better get moving. But all they really have is a brake, which is their reins. And you'll see them at the start of a race, they'll try and jump out and get a good position, but then it's just holding the reins tight. And as they want the horse to go faster, they loosen them. They keep loosening them till they get near the end, and they let them off the bridle, hence the name, off the bridle. They let the reins loose, and the horse knows then he can go as fast as he wants. Because horses by their nature, or race horses by their nature, just want to go as quick as they can for as long as they can. And they probably don't understand the concept of pacing themselves. So what was interesting about Kilcruit's performance at the Dublin Racing Festival was the fact that two horses up ahead that were setting the pace were off the bridle coming into the home straight. And Kilcruit, with Patrick Mullins on board, squeezing him very, very tightly, like foot bang on the brake. Kilcruit ghosted up past him, past the line, with Patrick Mullins still squeezing those reins. And you wonder, if Patrick Mullins had let him off the reins, let him off the bridle, what would he have done? Where would he have ended up? He could do this in a champion or in a bumper, Grade 1 bumper at the Dublin Racing Festival, without coming off the bridle. What's he capable of if he ever has to come off it? And it was just sensational. Now there is a caveat. Those, I suppose, with a greater understanding of the game and a greater understanding of jockeys and horses and how they run and the pacemaking and whatnot, will say that the two lads in front probably went a little bit too fast, and they probably were slowing down considerably coming towards the end. In fact, Kilcruit may have been slowing down as well. So maybe it was a very flattering performance, but it's certainly worthy of attention and worthy of noting. And it'll be interesting to see the way it goes. So therefore, my Bluffer's guide is to say when before the champion bumper, say if Kilcruit is upsides swinging into the final bend, he won't be caught. So upsides means a horse is alongside another horse. They're eyeballing each other.
Yeah.
So if he's upsides swinging around the final bend, he won't be caught. And I've got an addendum to that, because inevitably the British press, and fairness to them, they struggle at times with Irish names and Irish place names, but a lot of them have been saying Kilcruit or whatever. So I don't know, are you more of a roll your eyes guy, Mick, or you throw the hands up in the air? But when they inevitably pronounce the name wrong, you can go, oh, it's Kilcruit. Kilcruit. Why don't they ever say that?
I've got you right. So I can do this. So I can get in advance of the bumper by saying that if Kilcruit is what's he going to be? Upsides, heading round the final bend, he won't be beaten, right? So that's, people will go, Jesus, this fella knows about Kilcruit. And then when I can get angry after the race, when I'm sitting there and the brilliant commentary team, I have to say, on ITV Racing that does it now, basically taken over from Channel 4 Racing. When they do it and they get the name wrong, I can be absolutely disgusted, because I've had such a long relationship with Kilcruit, the Willie Mullins horse that's going to be running in this race. Okay, perfect. Okay, so that is actually one to look out for, though, in the bumper. Again, a lottery of a race, if ever there is one at the Cheltenham Festival, especially this far out. But that's an interesting little tip you've got going on there for my Bluffer's guide. The Ryanair Chase, then. Speaking of lotteries, it's not quite on the day, but this is seemingly one that is just like you look at the anti-post betting there from Ladbrokes below, and Chacun Persois second favourite, and we're almost sure he's going to run and possibly win the Champion Chase, because we talked about him last week, which would mean he's not there. Min is another one who's more than likely going into Champion Chase, for example. So what do you make of all this? What are we looking out for this far out in the Ryanair?
Yeah, I mean, Ryanair is a little bit like the unofficial fifth championship race. The championship race has been Champion Hurdle, Champion Chase, Stairs Hurdle, and Gold Cup. So yeah, this is the fifth one. It's a bit like, I suppose your tour finals, your tour championship of the jumps racing. That's what it is.
The WGC.
Exactly.
Not
So
quite a major, but it's almost one of the best WGC, which is the Ryanair, is almost there with the PGA, which in this case is the Stayers Hurdle.
absolutely, and that's why they
Yeah.
put them on the same day. You know,
That's a good way of, I think, explaining it to people as well. Is that like there was 3 days at Cheltenham. They created a fourth day, so we had to have a fourth big race. But that fourth big race was never going to live up to the Champion Chase, the Champion Hurdle, or the Gold Cup, obviously. So it became this thing. It was the World Hurdle, it was called at the time. Now it's the Stayers Hurdle. And it's great. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a good big race, but it's never going to be as big as the other three. So it's always going to have competition. And it has been that Ryanair has become that other big race on the Thursday.
it's a bit like on one hand it's like the fifth major, but on the other hand, it's like it's a lot of trainers, plan B, for those runners that are just not quick enough to contend in the Champion Chase, but they just don't have the stamina to last the Gold Cup. The Ryanair fits right bang in the middle, and a lot of trainers that are unsure of what they're going to do, they throw them in the Ryanair. I'll give you one I see down there along the bottom, Kimboy. So Kimboy has been in the Gold Cup once or twice now. He's been there the last 2 years. I think Willie Mullins has come to the realization now that Cheltenham probably just isn't for him, and the Gold Cup probably isn't his race. So he's considering dropping him. Like, this is a really unusual move, but dropping him from a Gold Cup back over hurdles to the Stayers Hurdle. But you may as well throw him into the Ryanair Chase there as well, just in case, to have a plan B. You can enter as many as you want, and you can take them out before the declarations are made. So Chacun Pour Soi is the same. Probably won't run. If you have a really, really good horse for a Gold Cup or a Champion Chase, you may as well throw them in the Ryanair Chase as well, just in case you learn a little bit about them between now and the festival. That's what it is.
Can I ask the length of it? So the Gold Cup's 3.5 miles, and the Champion Chase, obviously the 2 mile Champion Chase, that's fairly established. So there's a big L difference in there, and I'd imagine neither suits a lot of horses, because you're talking about the Gold Cup being nearly double the length of a Champion Chase. So is this 3 miles? Is it less? 2.5?
No, so the Gold Cup is about 3.2.
Oh, is it? Okay.
You factor in that hill as well, which is a nightmare for some horses. And then the Champion Chase is 2. The Ryanair comes in at around 2.5.
Yeah, so you would imagine that regardless of there's always the plan B element to it. But if you're talking about something that's right in the middle of those two types, you'd imagine a lot of horses are suited for the 2.5. Have we got many that are like, this is the race for them, and forget about all the other ones?
Surprisingly, there is some horses I'd have liked to see in here. I think that'd have been ideal, but it just doesn't hold the same allure as the Gold Cup. Yeah. An example, Paul Nicholls has a few horses, which I've been disappointed they haven't run here recently, or haven't run in recent years, and certainly thought they should have run this year, and they probably won't. First one is Clandas Obo, double King George at Kimpton. You win a King George, immediately you're thrown into the Gold Cup, into Gold Cup contention. But King George ran at Kimpton, which is a flat enough track compared to Cheltenham. And I think Clandas Obo has proved over the last few years, Cheltenham's just not for him, that hill and stuff. So, but I'd like to see him in the Ryanair, because the hill has proved his downfall. But if you take a few furlongs off, maybe 2.5 around Cheltenham isn't an awful lot far off, the tree around Kimpton. So I'd like to see him. It looks like he's going to head straight for Aintree though, which is, in April. So we're probably not going to see him, unfortunately. Frodon won the Ryanair 2 years ago. Again, won the King George last Christmas. And it looks like Paul Nicholls is going to be going to the Gold Cup. Throw Frodon at the Gold Cup and see how he does with Byron New Frost aboard. Because the Gold Cup is the Gold Cup. Ryanair is never going to be the Gold Cup. And then you have Suriname, who only a few years ago, there was a bit of Joe Frazier, Muhammad Ali talk in racing in who was the best, Altior or Suriname. And there was all this talk about Suriname being better than Altior, and then therefore being the best in the business and the best in the sport. And then they faced off. at Ascot, and Cheltenham won. So he was the undisputed best horse in jumps racing, because he never actually ran at Cheltenham. And his form has dipped since then, and it's not looking likely that he'll run this year, even though the Ryanair would be the perfect race for him, in my opinion. But he ran at the weekend, he pulled up, he's having breathing difficulties, and it looks like he's out for the season. But I'd have loved to see Cheltenham. I think he'd been ideal for the Ryanair, and I'd love to see him in his top form around Cheltenham. But, what can you do? But there is a few in this, this
Before we do that, though, it's just I'm sorry, I don't mean to go off on the getting people ready for their picking their horses, but I am intrigued by the allure of what is this race. Is it the fifth biggest race of the week? And I don't know if it is, because I think you have the Arkle holds more sway sometimes, even though it's for novices, and so it's just a very interesting idea. Who's your favorite ever Ryanair winner? Who's the one that you remember watching? I know mine, but I had to look up the name. I couldn't remember it, and he won 2.
I suppose one of the ones that springs straight to mind, and as soon as I hear yours, I'll probably change my mind. But and there's recency bias here as well. But Frodon, because that kind of really marked Barney Frost's, her rise to the top. And a great character. She was a new character. She was different from all the rest of the jockeys. Added a new, a new face to the game. Probably a needed face, new personality. And I suppose I probably remember Frodon winning it better than I actually remember Min winning it last year. I think the head to remember Min. But my enduring memory of Ryanair is often the horses that never ran and the horses that went to Gold Cups and underperformed. There have been a few over the years that I thought should have been going to the Ryanair, but they went to the Gold Cup instead and just didn't deliver. Meanwhile, the only one that ever really kind of put the deserved any kind of mass or deserved mass on this respect was Michael O'Leary. Because Michael O'Leary doesn't like giving away his money. He likes to keep his money and get collected again after giving it, because he sponsors the race, obviously, the Ryanair Chase. So
he's only won it once, though.
He spent years trying to win it, and a lot of the time he would sacrifice, in my opinion, again, a Gold Cup horse to run in the Ryanair. But no, with always beyond him, and then to tickle him even more when Willie Mullins would go and win it. When I think he said after one of the years that Willie Mullins no longer trains his horses, and yet he's still paying his checks. So he won with Balcony to Flow, which is another winner that I can actually remember quite well, because I remember in the lead up to the race reading everything about this horse and everything about this horse's form. And to my eyes, the only reason the horse was running was because Michael O'Leary wanted to run the horse in the race. And there was nothing to say this was a Ryanair horse. Everything went against it. In my opinion, the ground went against it. There was nothing that went for it. And went and won the race. So, can't throw up surprises.
I know. Just on O'Leary's thing there, that is so funny, because in 2015 he was third with Don Cossack, second and third in 2016, and then second again with Sub Lieutenant in 2017, and then finally won it in 2018. So it was quite the journey. But just looking at, so Alberta's Run was the horse I was talking about, by the way, won it 2 years in a row, and it was the second year actually was the one that kind of I remember really, really well. It felt like it was sort of you were witnessing a Cheltenham legend, and I wonder, was that maybe sometimes that only happens because of the repeat in the race rather than what race it is. But gone back and forth. But there's been some great horses that have won this race over the years. Arvik, Imperial Commander, Q Card, Undersow being probably the most recent of the really great horses that have won it. So, again, it has a huge pedigree, but I just don't think sometimes it grabs. I asked you what your favorite one was, because they're not always the most memorable races in the week where you think, you might remember the horses as being great Cheltenham horses, but you might necessarily jump out again for the non-real racing fan. It's not like, oh, geez, I remember who won the Gold Cup. I remember who won the Champion Hurdlist. It's more like, I remember Undersow winning a race one year. It was brilliant.
But you have to remember that for Undersow and Min to an extent, the Ryanair was almost second choice. They were first choice champion chasers. And it didn't work out behind Alti or whatever, so they sent them to Ryanair and it worked out there. But this was never the first choice, and people don't breed horses to to
win the Ryanair Chase.
To win the Ryanair Chase. It's
take that, Michael O'Leary.
Maybe Michael O'Leary does. He did enjoy winning this race, and I'm sure he'd like to win it again before he completely pulls out of the game, which unfortunately looks like he's gradually doing that. But there's Min is there deserving of respect. One horse, Aonghus there, the favourite. I like great performance last year in the RSA, just pipped by Champ. I thought showed enough to prove that likes the race course. Hasn't done an awful lot wrong this year. Imperial Aura has been impressive at Ascot, but hasn't yet proven himself against a Willie Mullins Arsenal, which is what he's going to have to do at Cheltenham, and coming up against the big boys. One horse that you don't see there and has been completely forgotten about, and it's going to be. I have a very strong affinity as a Mayo man to this horse for one reason. Mellon has gone to Cheltenham 4 times, and Mellon has got second at Cheltenham 4 times. So it's quite clear you don't need to be a psychologist to figure out why I have a strong affinity with this horse. But that aside is it's the head thinking as well as the heart, because I think at the prices I checked last was in double. Mellon was in double digits, twice second in the Champion Chase. Another interesting aspect here is William Mullins has been Aonghus, Mellon. Who's going to which horse is Paul Townend going to take? He'll have first choice. I'm not sure will he necessarily take Aonghus. If I was in his shoes, and there's a reason he is in his shoes and I'm not. He knows a lot better than I do. But if I was in his shoes, I don't think I'd be happy on Aonghus. And I'd be interested to see who he chooses and who takes the other rides if the amateurs aren't going to be there. Though Patrick Mullins may be there, and if Patrick Mullins does turn professional, I wouldn't be surprised to see him teaming up with Mellon again. And if he does, I think that's where I'd be lying my chips.
Okay, don't forget about Mellon for the Ryanair, says Aonghus. Thanks a million, Aonghus. That was really enlightening. I think I enjoyed the general chat about the kind of the layout, the hierarchy of Cheltenham races, and of course I think we got some valuable information there as well. But the Champion Hurdle is the big one that we spoke about today. That's going to be the big race on Tuesday, the first day of it. Honeysuckle. What's the name of the Willie Mullins horse again? Just in case people out here that's never run for him before.
James DeVerde. Running because William Mullins wants something to do with him.
Something to do, great stuff. Aonghus will be back with us next week. Our shaman of Cheltenham is going to bring us more. We'll have 2 more races with you next week, and then we're going to be very bloody close to it when we come back for episode 4 in a couple of weeks' time. But looking forward to chatting to Aonghus again next week. Thanks a million. If you are having a bet on Cheltenham, or of course anything at all in between now and then, please always gamble responsibly. Visit dunlewy.net for more information. We'll be back with you next week for more Road to Cheltenham. We'll pick 2 more races. If you want to listen to last week's show, please do go back and listen to episode 1 where we talked about the Arkle. Brilliant Arkle. Looks actually set to be one of the best races of the week, and the Champion Chase. We spoke about them in episode 1. We'll have more next week. Next Thursday, we'll be back with Aonghus for 2 more races from the festival. Of course, if you want to listen to any other of our output from the build-up, we had Stephen Ferris on yesterday talking about the Italy versus Ireland game in the Six Nations, so you could just search for the build-up on Balls.ie for that. And we'll be back with you next Wednesday. Before we talk Cheltenham, we'll be talking some football with Kevin Doyle also on the build-up. So we'll see you then.